Hi, and welcome back. Sometimes I get asked, how did I leave my 7-year toxic relationship? I can tell you it wasn't easy. Probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Now, sometimes we find ourselves in a relationship where it's not so easy to just grab our things and walk out or, get away from that person. Sometimes we're so entangled that it's very difficult to leave. And in which case, you need to make a really good plan and have a strategy. So we're going to talk about that today. So you've decided to get out of your toxic relationship. Probably took you a long time to come to that decision, either because you were in the relationship for a long time or because it was abusive. It takes a while to get to that point, but once you get to that point and you finally decide that you need to end this and step away, the next part can be the most overwhelming and daunting. How do you actually do that? How do you get away? How do you get away safely? How do you get your finances back? How are you going to live and, stand on your own 2 feet? Those are the overwhelming parts of leaving that make it extremely difficult and often keep us longer in a relationship than we should be in it. Now, often our friends or family make it sound so easy, just leave. But if you guys have had the same experiences out there that I have, you know damn well that's not easy. It's not as easy as people think, because your finances have been intertwined. They've done enough emotional damage to you that you may not even feel that you can live on your own. They may have crippled you in such a way that you don't have the resources or the ability to be able to get away. But we're going to make a plan. Now, number one, never tell your abuser that you're going to be leaving them. That will definitely escalate things. You don't want them knowing that you're making this plan. So make sure that, if you're going to write things down and make a checklist, that you put it in a place that they're not going to be able to get to, or write it down and put it in a place that they're not going to find. Being successful in getting out of a very toxic relationship is going to hinge on your plan and sticking to your plan. But I can tell you, it's going to be so worth it. Now, I do want to say again, I'm not a licensed therapist. I am just talking from my own experiences and relaying to you out there what I've gone through and what has worked for me. I've also done many years of relationship research and researching narcissism and toxic personalities and abuse. And everything that I have learned through that, I really feel that I can share with you all out there. I think that it's important to have a therapist and to listen to, licensed therapists and psychologists. The whole point of my channel is to be able to show you my struggles and what I've been through and give you the advice from my vantage point, because I'm just a regular person like you who completely and 100% understand what you are going through. Sometimes you talk to a therapist and, they're talking out of a book. Maybe they don't have personal experience. So the first part of your plan is going to be to educate yourself. Learn all you can about abuse and toxic relationships, to understand, one, that you are in one, and to gain strength by knowing that that person can't gaslight you anymore, and that that your reality is messed up and that you need to leave. One of the tricks that you can do, not necessarily a trick, maybe a tactic, is that, especially with a narcissist, we call it gray rocking. And a narcissist will specifically want to get a rise out of you. They want to say and do anything they can to get a reaction out of you. Most likely a negative reaction. They don't really care if it's positive or negative. Most likely it ends up being negative. If you gray rock them, which means that you don't have a reaction, you just are neutral, That is going to help your sanity so that you're not reacting and getting that emotional stress and anxiety. My biggest piece of advice to you is to get emotionally ready. Now, what do I mean by that? We have gone through the ringer, some of us for many, many years or even decades, to the point that emotionally we feel crippled, that we can't even take care of ourselves or do anything that is healthy for ourselves because we've been brainwashed and led to believe that we can't. Being emotionally ready means that you are going to understand that, especially if this is going to be a difficult situation for you to get out of, that you prepare, that you realize that you're going to need the fortitude and realize that it's not going to be easy. You are going to battle for yourself and for your soul. You need to get the feeling like you're a warrior. It's going to be really, really hard. This is probably going to be one of the hardest things that you have to do. Now, they're going to go on a smear campaign at some point, trying to discredit you in front of your peers and your friends and family, so be ready for that. They're also going to do a tactic called hoovering, which is just trying to hoover you back like a vacuum cleaner. They're going to kind of suck you back in. They will pour on the charm and love bomb you. They're going to, promise that they're never going to do that again. And they may apologize and beg. They might even stoop so low as to what my ex did in trying to make me believe that they were going to commit suicide. That was one of the tactics that was used on one of the 5 times that I had left and ended up going back. So you need to be emotionally ready and educate yourself specifically on trauma bonding and understanding the dynamics of that, so that if you see that happening, you're not so easily persuaded to go back. Now, some of us, even though we've been abused, you would think it'd be just easy to flip a switch and just walk away. But trauma bonding is such a powerful phenomenon where you feel bonded to that person, even though they have treated you badly. You just have a need still to have them in your life. It's a very emotional dynamic to go through, but if you understand what it is and safeguard yourself and recognize that it could be happening, hopefully you won't fall into that trap. Now, you love them, and I get that. I totally get that. That was part of the reason why it took me so long to get out of my relationship, and why I kept going back over and over, because I really thought that they would change. I really loved them so much that I thought that the love could make a difference and would make them change. And truth be told, it never did. Getting away is only the start. After you do successfully get away, you're going to have weeks, months, or maybe even years of dealing with that person. Maybe because you've got kids together, or you have shared property together, or you work together, or some type of connection that doesn't let you just totally walk away and go no contact. I'm here to tell you to just expect that it's going to take a long time. It could take a long time in your situation. I mean, everybody's situation is different. But at some point, it will end, and you're going to be so grateful that you took the first steps to make a plan and to get away. My next piece of advice is to make sure that you've got some friends and family, somebody that you can confide in to get support from. There's going to be times when you're weak and you're going to be contemplating going back to them. And if you've got somebody that is on your side that you can call right away and say, hey, these are my feelings, they can often prevent you from doing that and kind of talk you off the ledge. It is instrumental to have that person to be able to pull you back and remind you of reality, and to help you take those rose-colored glasses off when you think about going back. You could go to support groups in your area. Let's just face it. There's been a lot of trauma that was caused, and a lot of us have PTSD because of this. And you're going to need to have somebody help you on your side while you're fighting this fight to be able to get away. Now, I'm giving you these pieces of advice on how to make a plan pretty much in order of how they should be carried out. There are certain steps that should clearly be done before others. The next step, I would say, would be to write everything down. Hopefully you actually have started doing this already. Now, why am I saying write everything down, and what do I mean by that? I mean that every time he does something, says something that's off, makes you feel bad, you should write all of that down, mainly because down the line, you may have to fight in court against this person, and it would be really beneficial for you from a litigation standpoint that you have everything documented. Every time he said something or did something that was abusive, you'll have that documented, the day that it happened and what happened. Some of us have a binder that's pretty thick with all of that. But I will tell you, if you talk to a lawyer, they will say that that's invaluable evidence against that person, especially when they start going into the smear campaign against you. Now, the next step is to decide, what will it take for you to leave? We're all in different situations. Some of us have more resources and finances to be able to just walk out and start a new life. Chances are, though, that's not most of you out there that are watching this video. You may have to put some plans in place with saving money and figuring out how to get from point A to point B. How are you actually going to remove yourself from the situation and find a place to live that is safe, and how to be able to support yourself, especially if you are in a situation where you are dependent on that other person for all of your needs, your housing, your clothing, your food, finances, all of that, paying the bills. It's not so easy when now you've got to figure all of that out. You may not have a job. You may have other things going on, like kids or animals or a business together, things like that. You're going to need to start thinking about how would that actually look to be away from that person, and how can you stand on your own 2 feet. It may take years for you to get to that point, but after all, it might have probably taken you years to be in this relationship and get to the point where you're like, okay, I've had enough. I deserve more and I need to leave. So it may take you time. Don't be frustrated when it's not a really quick thing. But making this plan and sticking to it day after day and month after month, eventually you will get there. You may be thinking, how am I going to support myself? Maybe you're going to have to go back to school, so that when you're finally ready to leave and you can leave, that you've got that education to fall back on so that you can get a job. Maybe it's not as big as getting an education. Maybe you find a job or line things up so that you'll have a job. You're also going to need to start limiting the complications in your life. Like, you may need to start simplifying. Maybe, if you have too many animals, you may have to start coming to the realization that you're going to need to rehome some of them so that it is easy to leave, especially if you can't take them with you. You may have children that you are going to need to plan for. What is it going to look like when you take them out of the home? And legally, what are the implications? You're going to need to start to do your research on that. You're also going to need to start selling things. What can you sell? What can you sell? One, because, it's more stuff to move. When you do move, most likely you won't be able to bring very much with you. You won't have that opportunity. The other thing is you may need to start collecting money. It pretty much is a guideline that you have about 3 months of living expenses saved up, so that you can get away more comfortably. Now, that may not be totally possible. And like I said, everybody's situation is different. You may be able to get a loan, have friends and family help you with that. But if you can start saving up enough money to make sure that you have enough to support yourself for several months, that's always going to be the best plan. Is he dangerous? That is definitely going to affect your plan. You may want to get a restraining order in place first. Definitely make sure you're documenting everything that's being done. You may need to get a lawyer sooner rather than later to help your case. It's important to tell your friends and family, clergy, therapists, what is going on in the relationship, as embarrassing as it is, so that you've got witnesses to what you've been through. Oftentimes when you're trying to leave an abusive person, they will flip everything around and make it seem like you're the crazy one and try to discredit you. You're going to need those people as proof and character witnesses on your behalf. If he is dangerous, you're going to need to think about getting the police involved as well. Don't try to do this by yourself. The name of the game is staying one step ahead of your abuser. Change your passwords on all your social media accounts, on your emails, and on all your devices so that they can't see anything that is going to key them in that you're thinking about leaving. Trust me, toxic people will go to no length to try to see what you're up to and to spy on you to see what you're doing and if it's anything that they should be concerned about, or to use it to try to manipulate or control you. Trust me, toxic people, they're going to be spying on you, looking at what you're doing, and you don't want them to see that you're trying to make a plan to get away. So if you don't think they're looking at your stuff, wake up, they are. You may want to take your cell phone in to see if it has any tracking software been put on it. You may need to even take your car in to see if there's been any tracking devices. My ex would do this. He would track me by my car and by my phone, unbeknownst to me at the time. It came up where people said, oh, do you think he's tracking you? And I would think, nah, he's not going to go through all that trouble. Much to my surprise at the time, he actually did go through all that trouble. And the more I talk to other people, the more I'm hearing that their significant others or husbands who are toxic have done the same thing to them. So don't put it past them. Just change all your passwords and make sure that you keep all your information safe. You may want to get a P.O. box that they don't know about so that you can have any type of material mailed to you. Maybe you're already dealing with lawyers, or when you get to that point, they may need to mail you information. You don't want them to see that information in your regular mail, so it's always a good idea to get a P.O. box. Talking about lawyers, at some point before you actually leave, you need to have a lawyer in your back pocket. So start interviewing them now. Talk to your friends and family and those that you trust on who would be a good lawyer for your situation, particularly a lawyer that has experience dealing with a narcissistic person or a toxic person or an abusive situation. The next thing you're going to want to do is take pictures of all legal types of papers. You may be in a situation where you're not in charge of the finances. You're going to want bank statement copies and insurance information, car insurance, life insurance, medical, dental, any type of legal paper that you may need to have later. Once you leave, he's probably going to make it impossible for you to get that. So I would start looking for those items and taking pictures of them. One of the things that I did was I had gotten a storage shed and I started moving my most prized belongings into that storage shed because I wanted to have a plan B in case when I left, if it wasn't going to be easy, I was going to be able to have the things that were most important to me, because I had a fear that I would not be able to get those items back, or that he would break those items or burn those items or just make it impossible for me to get them. And, photo albums and things from my kids, their art projects when they were in school, and just all those mementos and pictures that I'd collected through the years are things that were priceless to me. I wanted to make sure that I had those. So you may want to get a storage and start moving things little at a time when they're not there, if you can do that, so that you have those things with you for later. And going along with that, like I said earlier, sell what you can to start making money. There is a price for your freedom after all. Another thing I would do is start a separate bank account where you can start keeping this money so that they don't know about it, and that money is safe for you to draw on later. A lot of times, if you just leave in a rush, the abusive person will make it difficult, if not near impossible, for you to get into your bank accounts, to get your possessions. So you need to think ahead about things like that. Another thing for you to keep close is the number to your local abuse hotline so that you can call them if things start to get bad or you're struggling and need to reach out. One of the things that I did was I got my concealed carry. I felt that I wanted to be able to protect myself. And of course, I wasn't going to get a gun without, going through the proper steps, getting the concealed carry, and then taking classes so that I felt comfortable and I was capable of handling a gun. It was something that I felt was important for me and my safety. Now, I know not all of you out there believe in guns or that you fear guns. You don't want to have them around, and I totally respect that. But if a gun is something that you feel is going to keep you safe, by all means, go through classes, get your concealed carry, learn how to use it, practice using your gun so that if anything, God forbid, should ever happen, you can at least protect yourself. The next step is trying to figure out where will you go and where will you live. Now that's going to look different for everybody, and it all depends on how much money you think you can save up or what money that you have and what resources you have. It may be simple. It may be that you can just, live with friends and family or move out of state to live with a friend. Some of us may need to go farther away because of the fear of violence that might happen when you leave. That is going to be up to you, but you're going to have to decide how far away do I need to get to feel safe and what would that look like? So start thinking about that. Now, if you're renting and you need to kick that toxic person out, you're probably going to want to do a couple things. One, change the locks on your door when that happens. And two, have the police involved. And if you didn't want to go so far as to have the police, at least have a show of force. Have as many family and friends there when you tell him to leave. You may even be able to pack up all of his stuff ahead of time so that when he comes in, it's all done. You will have all of your friends and family there that will help protect you and have that show of force so that they're less likely to act out, and they'll make it easier for them to leave. One of the things that I know people have done is when their husband, significant other, toxic person was away on a business trip or were gone for a day or two, they took that time to gather all of their stuff, got a storage, put it in the storage, and then changed the locks on the door, and then somehow got them the key to the storage. Now, probably the hardest thing that you're going to have to deal with is if you have children with this person. You're going to need to make a parenting plan, and it's going to take harder to get away from them because of the legal issues involved with custody. Make sure that you're talking with your lawyer ahead of time so you aren't blindsided and you understand exactly what you're walking into and how much time this could take. Now, I will say this. Once you leave, it is imperative to go no contact if you don't have kids. You need to be able to protect yourself as much as possible and block them from all social media. Do not allow them to be able to contact you, and you don't contact them. Now, sometimes that's easier said than done. You may have children together. You may have business together. In those cases, you want to keep all of your correspondence to writing, something in writing that you can document and have proof of what they're doing. There are actually specific texting apps for this. Keep things in text, keep things in email so that you can add that to your binder. So when it comes later, when you go to court, if you go to court, he said, she said situation, you have all the proof that they were being difficult, and it outlines how they've changed things and how they are lying if they decide to change the story later. Again, I'm going to say everybody's situation is different, but it is definitely worth it once you're on the other side. It took me personally about, 3 total years to finally get out of the relationship. It took about a year at the end to finally make that whole plan and make it work. But it was so incredibly worth it to me. It's been 3.5 years. And I look back and I don't even, I remember, of course, the struggles, but it's so totally doable if you have the resolve and you have the support to be able to get you there. Now, an important thing I will tell you is to make sure that you get therapy. You're going to have a lot of healing to do. Just, being with that person and then trying to get away, it may take years to go through that process, is going to cause you more emotional turmoil and trauma. You're going to need help dealing with that. Also, you're going to need help processing and dealing with all the trauma you've been through so that you can be ready, if you so choose down the line, to be in another relationship. How are you going to heal yourself so that you don't bring that baggage to the next relationship? How are you going to spot a similar type of person? There are a lot of things that you need to learn and heal yourself over. And it's going to be important that you get a therapist or someone that you can trust that can help you through all that. I hope this has helped. These are just a collection of things that I've written down that I wanted to share with you. Sometimes that overwhelming feeling keeps us from acting when we know we have to get away. But if you can think about all the things that I just discussed and you can sit down and make a plan, as long as that would take, you can see that there are steps and you can break it into smaller chunks so that it is less overwhelming and more doable for you. If you've gotten away from a toxic situation, how did you do it? Drop me a comment and let me know. Like and subscribe so I can continue making videos and reach more of you out there.